Hi there, Stampers. It's Jen Pitta with By the Shore Stamping. I wanted to share with you a new Teach Me Tuesday technique. Sorry, I've been a little absent this month, or November. The month of November was a little bit crazy for me, but I am back, and I had a really fun technique that I was reminded of on stage last month when I went to Salt Lake City, and it was the salted background technique. So I thought I would show you that today. You can see here that I did it on this card. You can tell in the background here. This one kind of reminded me of snow. I used the finer salt on this background, and then on this one I used the coarser salt, which is kind of a fun look too. So let's go ahead and show you what I did. So I'm using watercolor paper, and I already got some ink on this one, but it's going to be totally fine because we're going to make a mess of it anyway. So I'm not really worried about it. So what you're going to need is you're going to need an ink, and I'm using Marina Mist because I wanted it kind of like a snowy background. I'm also going to use my anaquapainter, a mister, and this is optional too. I used it on one of them and then not on the other one, and honestly I can't remember which one was which, so you can add it or not. And then also I have table salt, or I used sea salt as well. So this is a little bit coarser. Like I said, the coarser one had a little bit of a different look. It almost looks crackly. It looks kind of like, what's that called? Like the crackle paint. And then this one is finer. It looks a little bit more like snowflakes. See how it's got like the circle kind of look to it? All right, so I'm going to do this twice for you just so you can kind of see the difference. So what I'm going to do first, and on the one of them, I spritzed the paper first and then added a bunch of ink. And then on the other one, I added the color first and then spritzed the paper. All right, so let's go ahead and squeeze my ink pad. So I'm just squeezing the cover together. I've got it in between my two hands, and I'm just squeezing the cover, and that's going to get some ink on the inside cover here. Then I'm going to take my aqua painter. I'm going to actually squeeze the barrel. Generally, you don't want to do that, but I'm going to squeeze, and you can see I'm just dropping some water in there. Get it really, really wet. Okay. And then I'm going to take that ink. Move this one out of the way. I'm going to take that ink, and now I'm just going to really spray it on here. And I really want it to be really wet. So I'm going to actually add, I'm squeezing a little bit as I'm smearing this around too, just so that it wasn't quite so dry. You do want it pretty wet. So we're just gonna add some color here. Add a little more water again. Okay. Let's get it nice and juicy here. Once you've got it the way you want it, you're gonna go ahead and take, I'm going to try the regular fine salt here, and you're just going to sprinkle it over the background. And you can kind of start to see it sort of reacting a little bit. If you want to add a little more water to it, you can do that too. Just, I'm using my spritzer, and I'm just going to spritz it a little bit. So you're going to let that dry, and you can let it dry on its own, or you can heat set it. I'm going to let it sit for a second. So, and then I'll heat set it. Let's go ahead and do it again. This time, what I did with the other one is I did the spritzing first. So I took my spritzer and I spritzed the cardstock and got that good and wet. Then I grabbed the ink. So you're going to get a lighter color on this because we're putting so much water on it. So it's a really light wash. And we'll do this. What's really fun about this technique is you're going to get a different look every time you do it. And there's so many different ways and combos that you can actually put the ink and the salt to the paper. So you can certainly play with this and have a lot of fun. Let's just go ahead and add a little more color in here. So we'll do this. So this one's going to be really, really light. All right, now let's go take the coarse. So I'm taking the sea salt. And you can use a coarse salt too. This is just what I happen to have in the house, so that's what I'm using. I'm going to go ahead and put that down. And you can do as little or as lot or as much of the salt as you'd like. And I'm going to go ahead let's spritz this one too, just for the heck of it. The salt really tends to interact with the water. All right, so I'm going to take that out of the way. Just for time's sake, I'm going to actually, let me wipe off this salt off my paper first. And yes, I'm just wiping this on the floor right now. I know that's really bad, but my floor needs to be swept anyway, so I'll take care of that in a minute. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and take my heat gun, and I'm just going to heat set this for a second and dry out the ink. Once it's dry, you can actually wipe off all that salt. It's probably going to take it a minute to dry because I did put a lot. So let me... Okay, so I paused that for a second so you didn't have to watch me emboss or heat emboss that, or heat set it rather. So then I took my finger and I just wiped off the excess. So this is the one we did really light, so we spritzed the water first and then added the color and then added a little bit more water at the end. I believe this was our coarse salt. So this is the look that I got. So it's very light. What I did with the second one, this is before I wiped off the salt. And I don't know if this is going to work. Maybe a little bit. I wanted to see if we could make this, because I love the texture on that. So I wanted to see if I could actually make it stay. So I sprayed it with hairspray, but it didn't really seem to stick. So I'm going to have to probably take that off too. So you're just going to go ahead and take your, oh, it let some of it stay though, actually. So that's kind of cool. So I'm just going to take off a little bit of the excess stuff. But as you can see, some of it actually stayed put. So it gives really cool texture. And I just set it with some hairspray. So that was kind of fun. Some of it's going to come off, but I'm going to try and use that as my base because I think it really gives it that snow look. Okay, so what I did for the rest of this card is I used my crumb cake ink, which is the light brown, and a sponge, a stamping sponge, and I inked the edges of that. Just a quick little edge here. This cardstock smells really lovely now. It smells like my hairspray. So there's an added benefit to setting it with the hairspray. I don't know how long the salt will actually stay. Some of it feels really secure, some of it not so much. So I probably would want to set it again with a little more hairspray and probably let it stay put a little more. But for now, because I want to finish this video, I'm going to go ahead with it. All right, so next up, I took the Night of Navy ink, which is a great deep navy blue. My paper here is kind of warped, and I'm using the Carols of Christmas stamp set. I just love this piece on Earth. Such a wonderful sentiment and kind of, whoops, kind of generic, so that if you don't have, or you don't know if somebody celebrates Christmas, so to say, you can certainly send them this card and be safe. So I'm going to go ahead and ink this up with the Night of Navy. And then I'm going to challenge my, oh, that fell, luckily I put my finger there. That fell off almost right on top of my white. Let me try that again, make sure it's really good and stuck this time. And, sorry, I'm shaking the camera because I'm trying to make sure we don't have any issues with my stamp. So let's try that again. All right, so I'm going to test myself, as I was saying. I'm going to try and see if I can get this in the right spot on this pre-cut out circle. I used my layering circles framelits to cut that out. Not too shabby. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and attach, that looks pretty juicy actually, so I'm going to set that aside for a second. And I'm going to go ahead and attach this to a crumb cake base. So this piece, the crumb cake piece, is 4 by 5 1/4, and this watercolor paper. I forgot to mention, I think, that I'm using watercolor paper with this. And that piece is 3 3/4 by 5. Oh, and I forgot to put the ribbon around that piece, but I'll put it around this whole layer. I'm using the Night of Navy seam binding ribbon. We used this in card class this week too. It's such a pretty ribbon, and it's actually pretty easy to tie bows with. So if you are challenged when it comes to bows, this is a great option, and it looks so pretty. It makes such fun, fluffy little bows. So I'm going to put this off to the side here, like this. And I do have a bow tying video on my YouTube channel, so if you're just catching this for the first time, feel free to go back and check that out. I kind of give you my little tips and tricks for how to get a cute little bow. This one I didn't really give myself a whole lot of space to fluff, but we're going to make it work. Alright. This does make a really floofy bow, so like I said, so if you're mailing this, you may want to just make it a knot or something so it's not quite so bulky. Alright, so there is that. Then I did take crumb cake ink again, and my sponge, and I'm just going to go ahead and ink the edges of that as well. On the original card, I added some little deer in the bottom. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do that over the texture now, so we might have to forgo that. But, so let's go ahead and attach this to the base card. So I'm using Night of Navy as my base as well. Sorry, keep hitting that. In my way today, apparently. I'm gonna go ahead and attach that. I have a feeling this little hairspray trick is not gonna be tight enough to hold it completely with the salt. Some of it's still falling off, but it's still kind of a cool look. Kind of like it. Alright, dimensionals for the back of the sentiment, and because it's kind of off to the side, actually no, I can get it all on there, so I'm just going to put 4 here so that it doesn't sag. Alright, so let's put this here, and then my one last step here is I took my Wink of Stella, my glitter brush. Love this thing. And I'm just going to add a little bit of sparkle to the words. And I don't know if you can see that in the video, but it just adds that perfect little touch. I'll show you in a second, because I think if I bring it a little closer, it will show up. It's funny, this glitter shows up less or more depending on the light you have it in. Like, it shows up really well here at my desk with the OT light, but sometimes in card class they can't even see. I don't know if you can, up there to see it. A little bit of glimmer to it. So it's really nice little touch at the end. So there you go. I'm not going to stamp the little deer on the bottom, although that's really cute. I think with the texture it's going to be a little hard for me to get a nice crisp image. So there you have it, the salted background technique. Again, super fun to play with. All sorts of ways you can do it. You can add color first, add the water first, add salt and then add water again. So I definitely encourage you to play with this and see what you can come up with. And definitely share with me on Facebook. I'm at By the Shore Stamping. Search me out on Facebook, and please be sure to like my page. I share lots of tips and ideas there as well as information about upcoming sales and promotions and all that good stuff. So be sure to stay tuned. And until next time, I'll catch you next Tuesday for Teach Me Tuesday. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.